All right, welcome back to the Leadership Excellence Podcast with Dr. Tom Lawless and George Trachilis. Today, we got a treat for you. We're going to be talking about cultivating leaders and coaching for continuous growth. So this is about coaching and developing others. And what we've got is our top three is, Tom's going to talk about the leadership mirror. We're both going to talk about our top three things to do when coaching. And then Tom is going to talk about coaching at the Gemba. So, Tom, why don't you start us off with the leadership mirror, please?
Excellent. Yeah. Well, so we do a lot of teaching, and what I'd like to do is talk about a great example right now of looking in the mirror. And we can see this with the government shutdown in the U.S. Now, I'm not going to be in politics. I'm not going to talk about one side or the other because it just doesn't matter. What I am going to talk about is there are hundreds of thousands of people that are not eating, not working because of what I consider poor leadership, right? And it's looking in that mirror, right? You have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, you have to lead with humility. And you have to have respect for everybody. And what I'm seeing right now is people it's great when they're on camera, but they don't feel the impact that their subordinates feel, right? All of those people that are out that are working for free or working or not working at all are subordinates to the people that are making these decisions, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And it's if I was in a leadership position like this and I took care of my subordinates like this, I'd probably lose my job within a day, because not only am I not taking care of my people, but I'm putting them in great danger, right? Because we're taking the safety factor. We're taking that safety factor that people have normally, and we're throwing it right out the window. And everybody's blaming everybody else, right? And it's easy for somebody to look across the aisle and say, well, it's their fault. No, it's their fault. Well, guess what, guys? It's everybody's fault. It's all of your faults, right? If you are in a leadership position, it is your fault. Bottom line, there's no gray area there. It is your fault. Part of being a leader is compromise. Part of being a leader is looking in that mirror and asking yourself every day, am I taking care of my people?
Wow, good one.
And, we talk about, in the military, right? Leaders eat last. Well, guess what? In this case, leaders are eating and their subordinates are not. So, not even eating last. They're just not eating.
Wow, I get a chill thinking about it, Tom. What a difference, right? You think about food on somebody's table not being there.
Yeah.
What a comparison.
Yeah.
Do you think they even think about this leadership mirror?
I don't think they do at all. They have this thought. Here's my thought on it is that I think that they have lost sight of the fact that they feel like they're elite. They don't feel that they have to answer to anybody. They're the elite, and they and everybody, all of their subordinates are just, hey, they work for me. They can, who cares if they eat or not, right? They're lucky it's one of those things where the leadership has lost sight of who they really support, right?
Yeah.
Who are they there for? Who are they there for? Are they there for themselves? Is leadership to them a title, or is it an opportunity? And I think that in their case, it's not, leadership is not a skill, it's a title. And instead, it should be that leadership is a skill. They learn to be a leader. They look in that mirror. They look at their faults. Everybody has a fault. And I would almost guarantee you that if you went down that list of everybody in Congress and the Senate and all of those branches right now, I'll bet a handful of them have a coach.
Oh, good
Why?
one.
Because because they don't think they need a coach.
I was going to ask you, how do you start with this leadership mirror? And because you can't do it on your own, and actually
No.
nobody does that, in my opinion. You need a coach. You're right.
Yes, you need a coach. And they don't feel like they need a coach. They feel like, hey, I know everything. No, you don't. You don't know everything. And guess what? You don't know. You're still going out for your steak dinners at night and your subordinates can't afford ramen. It's like, come on, guys. Not that there's anything wrong with ramen because, we've all been in college. That's what I ate. In the military, I ate a lot of ramen. So but it's like these guys, of course, they're eating well. They have nice suits. They're getting perks. They're getting paid. So anyway, it's one of those things where I think this is a perfect opportunity to say, lead with humility.
Yeah.
You have to respect every individual. These aren't just slogans. They're coaching behaviors. They're opportunities to grow. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity that, once again, it's easy to argue and say, oh, and we're not doing this, or we're not doing that, or we're not giving in here, or we're not giving in there. But guys, face it, who are you hurting? You're hurting your subordinates. You're hurting the people that you're hurting, your constituents too. Because when we talk about hundreds of thousands of people that aren't working in the government, well, now think about all of those people that think about the local fast food restaurant, right? You go to that fast food restaurant. Well, now guess what? That fast food restaurant that was right next to where all these people used to go to eat, they're not getting any business right now because all these people are either furloughed or they're working without pay. And so now that place is hurting. So now you have more people that aren't working.
Wow, this is a big systemic problem.
Yeah, and it's all because of poor leadership and not accepting coaching. And I'll guarantee you they don't have coaches.
Yeah. Wow, good point. So next small step for anybody who is a leader, who can afford it, who can afford that steak, get a coach. Okay, which is a great lead into our top 3 ways of coaching, or top 3 things to remember when we're coaching. So I'll start off, Tom, if you don't mind.
Yes.
My top 3, I'm going to say you got to coach to their true potential, and I'll cover what that means for me. Then you got to coach them to understand principles, truths in life, like respect every individual. It's a principle. There are consequences if you don't do this. And then number 3 is the attitude that the student has. Okay, so let me cover the first. Coach to their true potential. What it means for me is I'm looking at someone and I'm not comparing them to me. I'm not even comparing them to them. I'm thinking about whatever future they can describe, whatever it is. And no matter how grandiose, I'm thinking about the question, what's next after you achieve that? Because that'll break them through that little, I got to remember this flea market ceiling, it'll break them through that. It'll actually project them well beyond their current thinking, and they'll develop and change their life by answering that question, what's next? So coaching to their true potential means I'm not limiting them. I'm not limiting them in my view on how I'm coaching them. It's kind of like when I started doing this, it was because of the book, Developing Lean Leaders at All Levels. Jeff Liker said, coach people to their true potential, which means there's an ideal state for them. So that ideal state recognizes that they're going to be way, way better than they currently are. That's why you want to time bind it somehow, get them to believe in something, and then let's pick a year out or something like that, somewhere in the future, and they could pick somebody who they are not today, but they will be tomorrow. And there's a gap, and that gap represents our coaching opportunity. Whenever there's a gap between today and tomorrow, that's called a problem at Toyota. And that problem is something we can start working at. All right. So that's one thing. I don't believe in, I don't believe in looking at somebody and saying, "Oh, you won't achieve this," or you're one of the bottom 20%. We got to let you go in the organization. Well, if they're part of the bottom 20%, you as a leader have failed because they've done experiments like this. And when one leader changed with another, they reversed the roles. They said their top 20% was really their bottom 20. Their bottom 20 was their top 20. And guess what happened over a year or two? They reversed. It's because of the way the leader treated the individuals. They
I completely
reversed
agree with
in
that.
order. Yeah. So
Hmm.
do that. Number two, understand principles. Now, I even had to look it up, Tom. I'm an immigrant. I went to school. I just never used the word principles. And then I read the book, Principles of Lean Thinking. And then I thought, oh, I've used the word principles. I didn't know what principles were. What are they? I look it up in a dictionary, and there it is, a self-evident truth, principles. So what are some principles in life? Waste is a huge principle. You are
Oh,
wasting your life by not working towards achieving your goals of the future. You're wasting your life. Of course, we got maintenance to do, like, got to get some exercise, all that, but you're still wasting your life if you're putting your energy in a direction that you're not really meant to go down. That's why we use ikigai as a topic. Like find your bliss. Don't waste your life. And then number two, recognize patterns. One of the interesting things about patterns is this is where you can write a book because somebody didn't see this pattern before. And I'll say Mike Rother as an example. He studied under Jeff Liker, right? University of Michigan and Toyota
hmm.
Way. And he went to Toyota and he kind of like looked at how they were leading. Why is Toyota better at leading people than anybody else? And he recognized a pattern that they were using that they didn't even know. It's going one step deeper. When you recognize patterns in life, you can then, whether it's a vicious cycle or it's a growth cycle, it doesn't matter. You can then adjust knobs and buttons and activities and change the way things could be for you, recognizing patterns. And of course, I alluded to this, think scientifically. Just try something. Try a little experiment. What did I do yesterday? What did I think was going to happen? What did happen? What am I going to do tomorrow? What did I learn from it? And then what am I going to do tomorrow that's different? So think scientifically, PDSA or PDCA, whatever you want to call it. Plan, do, check, and adjust or act. Okay, so think scientifically, huge. Finally, develop the right attitude in people. And so if I'm the coach and I hear somebody, talking in a self-defeatist way, I will correct them. And that's one of the toughest things, this correction process. It's almost like you got to get permission from your student to correct them nowadays. Because if you don't have that permission, what's going to end up happening is they might take it wrong. Your correction might be viewed as criticism, which it's not. It should not be. Your correction should be, look, there are simple principles in life. Like you go into an area. I remember walking with Rizzo Shingo into Santorini, that winery
Yeah,
where they sell
yeah.
the wine. And he says to me, George, what's the ideal vision for this retail store, Santo Wines, that sells wines? And I had to think about it. Well, ideally, somebody should be able to go in there, find whatever they want. And so I had to describe a future, and then I looked at the place itself, the Gemba, right? So comparing it to the ideal is so important. So developing the right attitude and having something like I will try attitude is so important. And then you just try some. Okay, so those are the things I wanted to talk about. And one thing I will always remember that was said to me, George, a bad student can make even the best coach in the world look bad.
That is so good.
Yeah. So Tom, what are your top three?
Well, my first one, coach by asking, not telling. So often, and don't get me wrong, we make a decision, right? And I'm not afraid to make a decision. I'll make it right now. But what I always want is I want to get everybody's thoughts. Here's my objective. Here's our timeline. What do you think? Now, I might have the overall vision on here's what needs to happen, but like I tell my teams, don't let me make the final decision on this. Don't let me be the one that comes up with the actual plan. I have the overall vision. I don't have the plan on going in, the plan of attack. That's up to you to come up with because, hey, you're the brains of the operation, right? My my subordinates are always the brains of the operation. I always kid them and tell them, hey, I'm the eye candy, you're the brains. Okay, maybe not. But so we ask. Don't tell them what you're going to do. Ask. Second, and this I think is until you go to the Gemba, you don't know. You can't. You have to go and see, you have to ask why, and you have to show respect. Once again, now I started this off with our leadership in the government. Well, now let's go to a leadership in a business. How often do they just take a couple of minutes and it's great that you have your Gemba walk all planned out. Once a week I know I'm going to go out there at this time.
Yeah.
But how often do you walk by that plant door or walk by your people and not just stop and ask why, not in a threatening way, and show respect? So why do you do this? What are
Tom,
some of the ways you would improve?
yeah, Tom, this word Gemba, people might not know it, right? So what is Gemba?
It's go to where the work is done. Go see.
Yeah, go to where things are happening. You almost have to identify the Gemba for a finance person is, in a certain area. The Gemba for me as a coach, my Gemba is my student's brain and how they think. That's my Gemba.
Yeah.
So you got to pick your Gemba and you got to be present and visualize. Keep on going, Tom. This is good.
Yeah. Show respect for them. Ask them, right? When I go into a place, I'll go to the people that do the work. I'll go to where they're doing the work. And I start off by not even asking about their current job or whatever. I'll ask, okay, so are you from here? Is your family from here? Did you grow up around here? I want to know these people. I said I think on our first podcast, I said, I was told when I was a junior leader in the military okay, so what's that person's name? Do they have a family? Yeah. Right? And it's getting to know that person. That's showing respect. That way, when you ask why and you ask, okay, so what are some ways to improve? They're going to feel comfortable telling you. And it's going and seeing. It's getting out there, right? So coach the Gemba. Right. And then coach through reflection and accountability. Once again, I go back to that mirror, right? Reflection and accountability.
So what does accountability mean for them? Like to reflect, we covered, but how do they remain accountable?
Well,
is it to themselves?
To myself, I am accountable, right? Mm-hmm. Now, true. I have my subordinates that I'm accountable for. They're not accountable. Well, yeah, they're accountable to me too, but I'm accountable to them too, right? It's a two-way street. I'm accountable to make good decisions. I am accountable to lead them in the best way possible, the best way I know possible, and for me to continually grow, and that I'm accountable for too. Right? Because if I'm not continually growing, if I'm not being coached, then guess what? I become stagnant. And if I become stagnant, then then my whole organization becomes stagnant.
Right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about an example of accountability, and then I want you to get into the Gemba because we promised everybody we talk about the Gemba. Gemba is the place where things are happening. But accountability. Now let's talk a little bit about my trip to Japan, which was one of my trips to Japan. It was just amazing. I met Mr. Matt Amazawa. They call him Mr. Lexus, or at least Paul Akers does, and he did a little video on him. So Matt Amazawa was the vice president of operations for all of Toyota. And I was thinking about how many divisions they have and what he's responsible for. My mind goes to how many people report to you, Mr. Matt Amazawa. He says something like, I don't know the number, but George, I report to 30,000 people. I report to 30,000 people. That's what I'm talking about, attitude. Change your attitude is so critical. One thought like that is amazing. Ritzo Shingo said to me when I was in the blame mode, he said, George, you want to blame somebody, blame yourself. Because when you blame somebody, it's like spitting up in the air.
Yeah.
And it'll just come back down in your face. It's amazing that these little corrections in my life have changed me forever. And it's about my attitude. Now, let's talk a little more about the Gemba. This is our third and last kind of topic, Tom. Get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So and we talked about this, going to where the work is done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's use this as an example. Let's look at the FAA controllers. And maybe we have, I don't know. Have we seen the leadership going into some of those control towers and seeing the real impact and asking why? Show respect. Once again, leaders that stay in offices, they miss what's really happening, whether it be on the shop floor, whether it be in the office, whether it be in that control tower, whether it be in the field in the military. If you're in an office, you have no idea what's going on out there. I remember a colonel I worked for years and years, decades ago. Who am I kidding? That he had his battalion commanders in a meeting, and this is like at 0600, and he looked at both these battalion commanders, and we're in the field, right? So, their battalions are out in the field, and he asked each of them, "Have you touched your equipment today?" Both of them looked at each other and looked at him and said, "Well, not today." He said, "Really?" "Well, I have. Me and the sergeant major went down there today, and we touched your equipment. Have you met specialist such and such?" And they both, they have big commands, and they said, no. One of them said no because it was his soldier. He goes, "I have. Have you talked to him?" I mean, so how can you learn? And that was a great lesson, right? How can you learn if you're not there? If you don't go down there and you don't talk, how can you learn? How do you know what's going on? How do you know what's happening? And do you have respect now from those people? So you make a decision from that office, and what happens where the work's done, George?
Yeah.
I mean, people say, that's just another idea from the ivory tower, right?
Well, you know what? People, and by people, I mean our peers, the executives that we coach. They have so many things to do outside of walking to the shop floor or to the Gemba. Their Gemba is, going to a bank asking for money. Their Gemba is like somewhere else, has nothing to do with people. But we already discussed, if you're a leader, it's all about taking care of people. So
That's
they're
right.
in the wrong area. If they're leadership, then they're taking care of people. I really loved what you said. Okay, so I just want to say that growth is one of the topics for today. And if you're going to grow your student to become a leader who grows other students to become leaders, you have to have an ideal vision. That goes for the Gemba and that goes for the person. And next week, we're going to talk about going to the Gemba and supporting daily improvement. Now, that word in Japanese is called Kaizen. How do you support daily Kaizen? What do you do? And one of the things that will come up are small steps. It's the most amazing thing that you got to build people's confidence. And when their confidence grows, they will do great things. But usually a leader slams their confidence down and makes it so they never grow. They will be asking for more if you do this right. So next week, we'll talk about supporting daily Kaizen. Any final thoughts, Tom?
No, I mean, this has been a very impactful conversation.
Yeah, it has for me too.
Yeah, it's been good.
You know what's really funny is I never talked about this, but getting uncomfortable is part of this growth, right?
Yes,
And I'm
yes.
uncomfortable every time I do a podcast because I got so many things I want to talk about. And then I'm thinking about it all week, and then we don't rehearse, right? This is
No,
this is like live. We just say whatever's on our minds. We don't rehearse, and that uncomfortableness causes me to grow.
yeah.
So that's another topic we'll probably talk about next week. Okay, Mr. Tom and Mr. George signing off. I'll see you guys next week. And as of this week, you can join us for our live recordings. And when you join us, come on time, keep yourself off mute. Don't put your picture on, don't put your video on. Wait for us to be done, and then we will let people in. So we do have a couple people here today we're going to talk to right after this meeting. So please go to leadershipx.tv, and in the top right corner, click on that button and come see us. Love to see you every Saturday. Take care.
Thank you.